This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Storyblocks is the world's best stock media service offering video, audio, and images with the most affordable subscription plans on the market. Their ever-growing library has over 1 million high-quality, royalty-free assets, so you can bring your content to life more quickly and efficiently than ever before. With Storyblocks' unlimited all-access plan, you get unlimited downloads of everything in the library so you can try out multiple options and find the perfect fit for whatever you're making. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyaTest. That's storyblocks.com/onlyaTest.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, October 8th, 2020. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com.
This is only a test. This is only a test.
I was waiting for the symbol at the end, but there was none. But hey, that was a very pleasant intro.
I'm going to say that was pretty
done.
good. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Kept to the time constraints. That was created by Brian from Vermont. Thank you, Brian, for making that intro for us. Well done. And thank you everyone who's been submitting intros. We're going to keep on playing a new intro. I've heard from many listeners, many people have said one of the favorite parts of listening to this podcast now is the new intros. It's certainly one of my favorite parts.
Oh, good.
Well.
Oh no, what does that say about the rest of the podcast?
Many favorite parts indeed. Hello, everyone. We got a full crew back this week, although a little bit unconventionally if you're watching the video. But Kishore, welcome back.
Hello.
And Jeremy Williams as well.
Hi.
We're recording a little bit late this week, so thanks for bearing with us because one of us is on the road. This is strange.
So is this your first time that you've flown since the pandemic started? How was that experience?
It was good. So, well, good in the sense that it met my expectations and I was not as concerned as I thought I would have been. I was well prepared. So I am actually on the road. If you're watching the video, I am recording this from the safety and comfort of a hotel room, my base of operations. When we're not in production this week, and I'm actually in, well, is this the South or the East Coast? I'm not.
No,
sure.
you're in the South.
Am I in the South? I'm in
Yeah.
Tennessee. I'm in Will Country right now, looking for the Christmas tree farm. But in Nashville for this week, and yeah, like you said, Kishore, the first time I got on an airplane in over 6 months. Flew to LA and then LA to Nashville, so about like a half day of travel. Everyone on airplanes wearing masks. It was 2 different size planes. So the first flight to LA, one of those small commuter planes, and everyone had their own row, so no problems there. 2 seats on each side, so no kind of space in the middle. And then the longer flight, about 4 hours from LA to Nashville. Definitely empty seats in the middle. And that was a pretty packed flight, actually, but also everyone in mass.
Is that a requirement that airlines give you an empty seat next to you?
I think it's going to depend per airline. I flew Delta, and it is their requirement, although you may have seen in the news, not everyone abides by that. But yeah, everyone has a mask on, had a mask on my flight. The terminal ended up being the scariest place because the first flight, it was super early, so like airports felt pretty normal, pretty empty at 7 a.m. or so. But come 9 or 10 a.m. at a place like LAX, it was packed, and they board from the back and they give everyone extra time to do the boarding, so they don't cram people, on the bridge or the walkway and when they're getting into the plane. But because of that, it's just more people hovering and standing around in the terminal, especially since they also have the spacing between the seats. So more people are standing than sitting because of the distancing, but there's not really enforced distancing in the standing area, the standing room only. So couldn't wait to get on the plane, and then of course couldn't wait to get off the plane. We rented a car and went straight to a hotel, and that's where I've been. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you look good and you sound good for for a remote studio. I'm
Thank
highly
you.
impressed. Are we on hotel Wi-Fi at the moment?
You guys are on hotel Wi-Fi, free hotel Wi-Fi. I didn't even want to pay.
Appa- Apparently, hotel Wi-Fi is not so bad if there's only one user. So
I
I think
mean,
that this is what
Joey
we're
might be
learning.
using an internet. You know, he's not too far away. It's yeah. My fear actually to caveat this is that as the time I'm recording this is approximately close to the time I checked into the hotel, and so there's a chance I've had to re-sign in to hotel internet every 24 hours, and so it might drop me if I hit that 24-hour mark.
Right.
Right at so a little bit of
We'll just
excitement
keep the
here.
we'll keep the listeners on the edge of their seat for
That's right.
that
That's right.
development.
Yep. Yeah. But how are you guys doing? Back
Doing
at
great.
home? Yeah.
I I'm doing okay. Like I definitely had like a freak out. Like I think when it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, we're 6 months into this, and I was just having cabin fever. And when you have cabin fever with nowhere to go, that is the worst form of cabin fever. Um, but I kind of settled down this week. The fog returned. It feels like there's a little bit of like normalcy in the air. There's good news on like kind of the COVID front, at least here in San Francisco, with the number of cases continuing to decrease. So, and like we've been frequenting some of our favorite restaurants with takeout, and it's like made it feel a little bit, not much, but a little bit like old times. But mostly I feel good because I got a shipping notice that my new PC is on its way.
Oh,
Uh, and it has a 3080 in it, and I am very excited about that. And that email makes
Wow.
me happy. I spent way too much money on it because there is no other way to get a 3080 than to buy a pre-built, basically, at this point.
if you bought a 3080 from eBay, it probably would have cost the same as your pre-built.
That's true.
Yeah, and so I feel a little robbed because, you know, I wanted to build it, right? Like how often do you do this? Like every 5 years, maybe? Like, you know, if you're on a higher curve, maybe every 3 or 4 years, but still like I wanted to build it and
Kishore,
now it's gonna come pre-built.
there's nothing, I will wear a mask and head over to your place and intercept the package, disassemble your PC to give
No,
you the
you
building
won't. No,
experience.
no, you won't. No, you won't, because that day I'm going to be sitting outside the entire day waiting for the delivery.
Yeah. You might end up with a 2070 instead of a 3080, but yeah.
I highly doubt it for some reason, but I'm excited. It's also my first water cooled
Oh.
PC, so I'm excited to see how that all goes. And then it's also because I live in like kind of a slightly older house in San Francisco. I'm like, I wonder if like the lights in the house are going to start to flicker when I plug in like the 850-watt power supply. I'm just kind of curious how loud it's going to be, all that kind of stuff. I took some steps, but I'm excited to see how it goes. And then just to test out some of the NVIDIA features. And it came, because it's pre-built, came with a year of GeForce Now. And I haven't actually used GeForce Now, so I'm going to actually try it out.
Well, let me tell you this, Kishore. GeForce Now doesn't use your video card.
I know that now. Like, fine. I remember that podcast. I don't know what was going on in my head that day. But no, but I mean, it allows me to just mess around with services I hadn't had before. And get this, first time I've had my operating system on an SSD.
Wow.
Wow.
That's going to be a huge change for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a massive change for me.
That's exciting.
Wow. That's fantastic. And you'll be able to play games with us in VR. The Oculus Quest 2 will be out next week by the time people listen to this, and you'll be able to plug in that USB-C cable. Did you get a PC build with a PC case with a USB-C port on the front panel? Okay. Good.
No, it's actually
No?
it's like on the side. No,
I mean,
it's there. It's there. It's just not like it's not in like the front USB areas, but it'll be fine.
That's the port I use almost more than any other port on the computer, the front panel USB port. I wish there were multiple USB ports in the front. Like make it a MacBook, make it 4 USB-C ports in the front. That's what I want. Everything is much faster that way. Games you'll be playing, hopefully, will include Star Wars Squadrons. We had our friend Dan Stapleton on last week to talk about the launch of Squadrons. My video went out, and God, it's only been a week. And we've had a chance to play, although we should talk about our play experience because we were on multiple interfaces plus different displays. Like some of us were in VR, some of us were in VR with a gamepad, some of us were on flat screen. Let's talk about it. Jeremy, what's your excuse?
Excuse, first of all, I was in VR. I've only ever played Star Wars Squadrons in VR, and I have a hard time imagining enjoying it otherwise because it is by far my favorite VR game.
Whoa.
I'm just going to say that. Absolutely.
Whoa.
Yes. I have, and this is not, I'm not saying it is objectively the best VR game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's my favorite because I've been waiting to do this since I was 3 years old and I saw Star Wars and then, spent the rest of my childhood living in that universe. And I realized that not everyone is like that. And I didn't realize that until a week ago when this game came out. And I was like trying to get my 13-year-old son to play it, and he's good at it. He's better than I am at it, but he's not hooked on it.
He's better than all of us, FYI.
Yeah, sure.
And I said to him, is your dream not to fly a spacecraft, a space fighter, and have battles with X-Wings? Is that not like your ultimate dream? And he looked at me like, no, no, not at all. He wants to drive cars around and play car soccer. Like that's his dream. But I didn't realize that. I honestly didn't. Like I felt like we were all walking around this planet with the same aspirations to get in an X-Wing and fly in outer space. And to me, like that's what I can finally do thanks to Star Wars Squadrons in VR. And it is being in VR that makes that such a reality. I mean, you look around these spacecraft, every time a battle begins, I get chills. Every time. Like the battle begins, like you get out of the menus and whatever, like the pregame stuff, and you're in the spaceship, but be it an X-Wing, Y-Wing, TIE fighter, doesn't matter. You look around, it's so realistic, and you're in battle. And honestly, like I'm no good at the game, but it is the experience I've wanted from VR ever since the DK1. I mean, this is it, and I'm so glad. And I hope that I see that it's popular, but I hope it's popular enough in order to, make it worthwhile for EA to release more for it. I would love a Death Star run. I would like to see expansion packs, that kind of thing.
Are you having any of the frame rate dropping that a lot of higher end systems have been experiencing in VR?
Thankfully,
so Will was talking about that, that he was having that problem. I feel like the VR stuff isn't entirely worked out for the entire user base yet, which is like pretty commonplace for an EA release out the gate, but he was dropping frames and he thought it might be related to the video capture. Of course it wasn't. He uses a second PC for the capture, so he's definitely there's definitely some issues. He's waiting until they release a bug fix, some sort of like the first big patch, although they did release a VR stability patch, but I don't know how much good it did for people.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those inconsistent things. It's a launch not without its controversies and issues, but I think in terms of the gameplay, it has been very, very, very well received. I think if you listened to our podcast last week, you'll know that reviewers only got 2 days or so to play the single player game and only a few hours of multiplayer, and that was worrisome. And I get some of that now, having played it for a week and even having it loaded on my laptop. I've played it on my laptop on the road. Like there are things I'm noticing about it now. Not that it changes my opinion whether you should buy the game. You should buy the game. It fulfills the fantasy, just like you said, Jeremy. But there are some nuanced things, and especially things in the forums that are coming to light that I can better verbalize now, especially with the HOTAS controls and the dead zone. So like the two big things are performance. I think people with very high-end cards, as well as I think a 3080, and like some other people, he's had performance hiccups in VR. But the bigger thing is with the controls. So you play with a gamepad, Jeremy. I play with keyboard and mouse and the HOTAS. Kishore, you play with keyboard and mouse. But the controversy is that the settings for the flight sticks seem to be less responsive than people had hoped. And EA actually had acknowledged, the support team had acknowledged some of it in their support forums, that they might be releasing some patches to allow more customization. Let's say right now you can like change some dead zones. You can add dead zone actually, but you can't remove it. You can't make it more responsive. And my take on that is I think, that the dead zone is there intentionally. I think the dead zone is there for balance, actually. And it's not confirmed. This is my speculation, but just as you don't get an immediate response when you use the mouse in this game or the thumbstick in this game, you're dragging a vector to pull the nose of the ship in a direction. I think that is made so it's less like a first-person shooter, right? Because that wouldn't make sense for the physics of a ship, and more like a flight simulator, more like an air combat game.
Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely interesting that you have these 3 different control, models that are so different. Like on the gamepad, the way that there's a throttle in the game is really important because there's a mid zone wherein if you hit it, you have better maneuverability and you have a sort of top speed, top maneuverability. But on a gamepad, you don't know where that is because there's no haptic feedback. They don't use the haptic feedback to indicate that. Whereas on a joystick, HOTAS or
throttle,
or even I don't know how it works on keyboard, but you can hit it very easily.
It's just WS, baby.
It's just like keyboard's worse actually because
same thing then.
You're tapping the W or S or whatever you've programmed to get to that midpoint, and you have it's just pure visual feedback, right? Yep. And maybe some visual, right? It's either that you're looking at the gauge or you're looking at how fast you're going relative to other ships. It only is with the HOTAS that you have like a 1-to-1 translation between your 0 and your 100 and holding in the middle, especially with the HOTAS like the X-52. When you land in the middle, it's actually a physical design of the throttle where you feel a little bit of the pressure, the resistance is different halfway through. So it actually settles nicely in the sweet spot because the middle is where for some games you can throttle back or throttle forward. So they want to have it kind of nest in.
For some of the ships, especially some of the Imperial ships, I can see how that's like a massive advantage because like you see already sets of players that are using that acceleration, deceleration in those ships, especially to their advantage. I don't know if it matters as much in the Republic ships, like the Y-Wing, like having that ability. Sure, it matters, but I'm not sure it means that you can't enjoy the experience. Whereas like that TIE Interceptor, I feel like you need to be using that constantly.
The thing I want to see
between speedboat and yacht, right? Or jet ski and yacht.
I'm sure they're working on patches to improve these things. The thing I want to see is the ability to only play with your friends. Like you have to play with random people from the internet if you don't have 5 people in your group. And that's the one thing I'd like to see changed. I'd like to throw bots on our team. I know they can do it because when people drop out, they get replaced with bots. So that's like, I'm hoping that that's in the queue. It would be nice to be able to play on opposite sides of the battle as well. But
I was surprised at how different the maps were. I thought the maps were all going to be relatively the same, like the same basic construction. But they have a lot of unique characteristics that I wasn't expecting that have changed the fighting dynamic, especially the ones where you can fly through surfaces and continue to fight. I find that is going to be an endless opportunity for this game to grow.
Yeah, and because it's their model was pay once and you get what you paid for is what you get. It won't be DLC. It probably would be, I guess, DLC and expansion packs it's just, it's semantics at that point, but you would be probably paying, $20, $30, $40 for whatever map pack or
if it's a good map pack, I don't think people mind that as long as like everyone's still on the same, level playing field. I think I can imagine that. They have to be good and well developed, but that's the thing. It's like if you want well developed maps, you should pay for them.
Favorite loadouts for you guys? Favorite ships? Favorite most fun moments so far?
I tend to need to fly the bombers because I'm not very good, and I need that extra hull, that extra shield in order to survive long enough to do any damage. So yeah, I fly the Y-Wing or the TIE bomber.
So I am what people in the game have told me. I'm terrible. So But I don't care. I just fly the X-wing because that's what makes me feel like a kid.
Yeah. I flew X-wing for a while, and then I realized like that perfectly balanced firepower plus speed wasn't for me, and I want the Y-wings when I'm ending at. A-wing's my second favorite, which are very different. But my loadout for a Y-wing is high DPS, lots of damage. I love using mines, dropping mines, because Y-wings are easy targets for interceptors and TIE fighters. And so if someone's chasing me and they're within 100 meters, I can drop a mine. I very often get some easy kills that way. So love that loadout. And we'll be continuing to play. Hopefully patching and Kishore get that new system in, and we'll play and get back in the game. All right, so let's talk about top story. Do we have a top story? Well, let's see.
Top story this week.
What's the top story? We were debating about this before. I know we skipped on the Google product news last week. The Pixel stuff. Kishore thumbs down.
It's just not much happened, really.
Yeah,
like,
we're
going to talk about that speaker. We're going to talk about a Chromecast with a remote.
How about next week is the launch and release of the Oculus Quest 2. Jeremy, you got one on pre-order. I can't wait to try out the new head strap with the battery, but also the games, right? Developers have now had a chance to update their games, and there have been a bunch of news about games that are getting features and graphical updates for the Quest 2 specifically. So let's go over some of those. For example, Red Matter is a game that we saw early on.
I think they were the first ones to release screenshots of the improvements, and that was already a good-looking game. So that's been a priority of theirs to begin with. Maybe one of the best-looking Quest 1 games. So yeah, they improved beyond that for Quest 2. And it's interesting, and we should point out every game that is released has to run on both. That is a mandate from Oculus, from Facebook. You can't release a Quest 2 exclusive. But apparently, you can release Quest 2 exclusive features, graphical improvements and that kind of
assets. Yeah, yeah.
And not just assets, but also shaders and different rendering methods. So Apex Construct released a trailer today of their Quest 2 features, which look fine. It's not my favorite game in the world, but I know a lot of people like it. But more impressive, I thought, was Arizona Sunshine. So they actually released a Quest 2, Quest 1 comparison video, which, that's a very dramatic difference. So you've got new, splatter textures on the ground around zombies, and you have like specular highlights and like shaders that make the ground reflective, which the first one was completely lacking, and higher resolution textures, better looking zombies, better looking particle effects, all kinds of things. Better physics. So that's great. And so the fact that we're seeing these kind of improvements is good news, because there were some people saying when the Quest 2 was announced that this wouldn't be allowed, that games had to look the same on both. And clearly that's not the case. I mean, if they didn't have to look the same, people were concerned that they wouldn't be able to look too much better, because while the Quest 2 has so much horsepower, it also has to output almost how many more subpixels is it? It's a ton of data. It's 50% more pixels.
Don't mean anything.
Good point.
Pixels for sure.
50% more pixels. And so that's a lot more data that this XR2 has to pump out. So people were concerned maybe it wouldn't be able to do that, but clearly it's looking very positive, and I'm looking forward to doing my own comparisons.
And two other games also, Waltz of the Wizard. Those developers were early on to integrate hand tracking, and they also released some comparison screenshots showing just better like glowing effects, post-processing effects, particle effects, more interactive objects, and then also Trover Saves the Universe will have updated resolution and frame rate. So the interesting thing is kind of how developers are picking and choosing to take advantage of the XR2, because if they don't update their game, you get some natural benefits, which are a bumped up resolution. Although the bumped up resolution, as I've gone back and used the Quest 2, is kind of a tricky thing, because some games, even on the Quest 1, never rendered natively at native resolution, right? They were upscaled. They would render at an internal resolution of something that was lower than your 2560 by 1600, I would say, and then upscale to that. And then some games, when you look in the Quest 2, I think it's just another upscaling to the new resolution. It wasn't always natively new.
Right. Or sometimes they're using also a really maxed out foveated rendering, which reduces the resolution of the periphery. And now they're able to turn that off.
Yeah, that's in the texture specifically. You really notice it with the anisotropic filtering, where if you just move your head, you can literally see like a line that would kind of move across the scene, making textures look worse. And John Carmack talked about that in his talk, where like the kind of fixed foveated rendering stuff they thought would be a huge benefit, but really didn't give you that much of a performance bump. And so it's interesting to see in all these kind of announcements that our developers choosing to bump up resolution. What feels like the free performance things with the XR2? It feels like textures? Absolutely. They can do textures just, especially if they had a PC port already, throw those textures in and it's going to look that much better because the processor can handle it no problem. But then whether they're choosing between, rendering native versus a frame rate bump, and not everyone's doing a frame rate bump.
Well, yeah, I mean, is anyone doing a frame rate bump yet? I mean, do the beta units that you guys have, that the reviewers have, do they support 90 hertz in anything right now?
I think they're supposed to in the UI, main UI, and the web browser, and
but not apps.
Launch, but not apps.
Okay.
And when at launch, the OS will get updated where that will be a toggle, where you opt into that for battery life and performance reasons.
Because Virtual Desktop, Guy released an update that was supposed to add 90 hertz, support to Virtual Desktop, and I know that it seemed like some people were using it, but I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, and then I think it's not going to be allowed, or
exactly.
Yeah, at least at launch, and even like I think Oculus chimed in and said that, I think, kind of mirroring what John Carmack said, which is that the inconsistency in experiences is something that they didn't want to have to deal with in support, that they can control that minimum bar of what people, their home configurations, which, you can't do that with a desktop PC anyway, right? For people running Oculus Link, all you can do is mandate that they have enough bandwidth on the USB 3 to encode, but people are going to have a wide range of different video cards and different graphical settings, and that is akin to kind of the varying network settings and configurations. That's going to be a tricky thing for them.
I mean, they can't guarantee that you have a good experience with a side-loaded app, and yet they allow that. So it doesn't make sense to me that they would lock that down.
Yeah, and maybe that's the delineating line, right? As they're going to have the ability for people to run unQA'd applications just through a link, URL, that they'll open it up in your headset. Maybe that's where those apps like Virtual Desktop will be able to have a little more freedom. But I'm certainly looking forward to more people having the headset and being able to play more VR games and the games coming out later this fall. Which is a little bit of a preview of the VR Minute. As I try to get my system set up, I'm on a touchpad this week, guys. It's real slow to navigate. I apologize. Let's go to pop culture. Shall we MCU? No.
Sure.
Yeah, let's MCU first, because this news broke like today, right? And it piggybacks off of news that I don't think we even talked about last week. It might have broke since then. But Spider-Man's getting weird. The saga of Spider-Man is going to confuse you. Jeremy, you are the guinea pig in the room right now for us to figure this out. Okay, so when you talk to your kids about Spider-Man movies, who is Spider-Man?
What do you mean?
The actor, Peter Parker. Who plays Peter Parker?
Oh, it's the new guy. It's the guy who's been in the movies recently. Yeah, what's his name?
Tom Holland.
That's
Tom Holland.
Yep.
Right? He's great, right? He's
good.
Fantastic Spider-Man. And then the previous actors who've played Spider-Man on film, I think have been pretty good too. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Now, can you tell me the villains, Spider-Man's villains that he's fought in the movies? Right? The last one, it was.
Oh yeah, Doc Ock. That was one because I know that from the Spider-Man pinball machine.
That okay.
So that would have been a while ago. That would have been early.
Yeah,
It was early.
I mean, Tom Holland though. Tom Holland. Who do you fight in the two Spider-Man movies?
He fought the guy who you thought was good in the last one. He was
mysterious, but less us and more Mysterio.
Oh?
Yeah, Mysterio.
Oh. Yes, there you go.
And he was a conjurer of people's visions. He made you take hallucinogenics, and he made you imagine things.
So true, so true. And then in the first MCU Spider-Man movie, he fought the Vulture, Michael Keaton. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Scavenger, yeah, right.
That was good,
right? And that was really good. He unexpectedly was going out with his daughter. Yeah, big plot twist right there.
Oh, right.
Spoilers.
They had the talk in the car. That
amazing.
was great.
Great scene, right? Well, Sony I guess it's been rumored, not officially announced, with a big rumor last week that maybe one of the villains for the next Spider-Man movie, which was still in development, and it was a big question as to whether this Spider-Man Tom Holland would even be in the MCU, but they worked that out. But the villain is going to be Jamie Foxx playing Electro. Now, does that sound familiar at all to you, Jeremy?
No, negative.
No. Did you see The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
I got to tell you though, the feeling of it not being familiar is familiar. I did see Spider-Man 2, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. Is that the one where they kissed upside down?
Nope.
No, that is Spider-Man 2. Correct.
Yeah, but that's just Spider-Man 2. That's not
the Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's right. So
that was a Tobey Maguire one you're thinking of just now.
Yeah.
That's the one he fought Doc Ock. There you go.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
There goes your Doc Ock. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jamie Foxx already played Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in which it was Andrew Garfield playing Spider-Man and Emma Stone playing Gwen Stacy.
Wow.
And so how could it be? How could he come back as that same villain? Like, he kind of disappeared in a burst of electricity. He's electric powered. A burst of electricity at the end of that movie. But how could he be fighting Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the next Spider-Man movie? Does that make any sense?
This is madness. This is almost like a multiverse of madness.
Oh my goodness! I think you're right, Kishore. The faces you're making, Jeremy, make this all the more.
I think everyone's making faces at us. This is stupid. This is ridiculous. We've taken this too far.
So, if that's true, it would be weird. One. But two, it might make sense given the news that was also announced today that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange would also be making an appearance in the Spider-Man film. And it was already announced that the next Doctor Strange movie would be called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh,
and that movie would be following on the tails of whatever would be happening in the WandaVision TV show, Disney Plus TV show, because Wanda, Scarlet Witch, would be making an appearance in that film as well. So fans are creating a through line now. Whatever's going to happen, whatever reality bending stuff is going to happen in WandaVision may bleed into Doctor Strange, may open up a multiverse of madness, and then for Sony, which still is in partnership with Disney and Marvel for putting Spider-Man on film, may then also have an opportunity to bring old villains that weren't even in the MCU, that were in the previous pre-boots of the Spider-Man films, into an MCU Spider-Man film. What a thing.
I think more importantly, for us that like the best Spider-Man film, this opens up a Spider-Verse of sorts. And I think this is the opening to Miles Morales coming into the MCU. That's right. And also the big dream, the kind of like the forum hype, the Twitter hype, is that this would be an opportunity perhaps
to bring back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, even for but a cameo, to have the Spider-Man on film and maybe even an animated version come and share the screen, the big screen, hopefully.
Gotcha.
Look, no one's shooting movies. This is the time. You know where everyone is.
Green screen it up. Green screen
Wait a
it
minute.
up. Zoom call.
You're suggesting that Miles Morales would be played live action eventually?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I like that idea.
That's inevitable. They're going to make more money doing a live action film than an animated film. He's a wonderful character.
Does that mean the new guy's out?
No, they can coexist.
No, I think this is going to be a long play. I just think this storyline opens up that possibility, 10, 15 movies later. This is Marvel. It took them like 15 movies from revealing Thanos to actually playing a role in a significant role in any movie. So this is going to take a while.
How was Electro received in the last Spider-Man movie?
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the last Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man series. So that's how well that went.
Why do you keep calling it that? What is the Amazing Spider-Man series?
No, that was the name of the
that was the name of the movie.
There was the Tobey Maguire movies that were just called Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. And then the movie, then they did a reboot with Andrew Garfield. And those movies were called The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh.
And The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And the costume, I thought, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was fantastic. The one they ended up doing. I thought Andrew Garfield did a really good job, too. And they had Rhino in there. They were like...
Electro was not great, though.
Yeah, and they even had Harry Osborn. They had a Green Goblin in that one, too. But it was a little bit cluttered and, a little bloated. That was one directed by Mark Webb.
Okay.
But, it's Spider-Verse getting crazy. And you're going to need explainers, Jeremy. Thankfully, there's YouTube.
You know what? They do a good job. They do a good job of satisfying both of us. Like, they get me on board. They tell me what I need to know, and you guys get all the Easter eggs. They've never failed at that.
You ever, back when we were going to movies, you ever, after, well, I don't know how much you enjoyed to go into the movie theater with a big crowd, but I love just listening to people ask questions and have their conversations walking out of the theater, right? Because someone's gonna be going in a friends group where there's gonna be someone who's not as interested and then coming out and not understanding things, or maybe if they're a big fan, they're not gonna necessarily understand everything. But those are some fun conversations. Like afterward, going to the restroom, washing your hands, and listening to who was that character? I thought Spider-Man was this guy. Yeah.
Wow. When I'm in the bathroom at the movie theater, I just want to get out of there.
Oh,
yeah,
I
don't know what he's talking about,
too.
Jeremy. This is weird. This is very weird.
I'm out in the world. The other long play is going to be, unfortunately, Dune, also pushed back. It's super sad because we just had the trailer. It was supposed to come out in Christmas, but I think for Dune fans, this is probably this is the best chance for there to be a Dune 2. For them to make the second half of the movie if this movie is successful. And I don't think there's any way this movie would have been financially successful if they had released it this year. So push back to October.
It's true for all movies. The James Bond movie got moved back as well. In light of these announcements, Regal Cinemas, which is the second largest cinema chain in the country, decided they're going to cease operations again and shut down. For some unknown period of time. I think it's just the way it's going to be, because until a certain kind of level of crowds are able to go to theaters, and operating at 10% capacity is not that. I don't think any of these things can be success at their current budget levels. So if we want Dune 2 at the level of budget that Dune 1 cost, yeah, this is probably the right call.
Have either of you followed how well Tenet has done? Because that's a good example of a movie that had a release in countries that could sustain it. A huge budget.
Yeah, but I don't think it's done well compared to other Christopher Nolan movies.
It has not. And it's such a special case because it was going to be highly anticipated, and even Christopher Nolan movies, the early ones, didn't do so well financially, but this was supposed to be like an Inception. And also it was highly anticipated, but also wasn't as critically reviewed as well as some of his past films. And so I think it was considered a disappointment. I think the release of Tenet also in the kind of how it's performed, because what is it? It's made 300 million worldwide, which I know sounds like a lot, but in the U.S., where they would have expected to make 50% or if not more of the domestic gross, it's only made $45 million in the U.S. and 260 elsewhere internationally. So yeah, I think definitely a disappointment. And I don't know if they're going to put out a digital release for this or wait. Like I could very well see Warner Brothers waiting and say, you know what, most people in the U.S. haven't seen it. Sure, there have been people who've pirated it, but maybe let's wait till theaters are open again and let's just put it back in and double up our box office. I mean, why not? I'd go to see it in theaters. I'd wait, but if they put out a digital release, right? If I can get it on iTunes, then I'll probably watch it on iTunes.
I think for the good movies, like the ones they feel like, okay, we feel like there's something here, we want to do something to follow on this movie potentially, then they should wait. For something like Trolls World Tour, where they're like, we got to hit that family demo, we got to, we have something that's good enough, digital it, because there's so little competition in that space right now in terms of new content. I think Mulan's actually done reasonably well at a ridiculous price tag too. So I kind of am on the side of evaluate your movie critically and then go for it. So like Black Widow, no way. James Bond, no way. Dune, no way. But I'm sure there's going to be some Christmas with the Cranks 3, or whatever, that's coming out, or Halloween 15, just put it out on digital. And because you're probably going to do better, because there's going to be a ton of competition when movie theaters are up at 100% next year. Knock on wood, I think the thing I'm most worried about is, are there going to be enough movie theaters left standing next year by the time we get around to going back to them?
And that's one of the biggest disappointing things, because those smaller movies, the places where they would have flourished, some of those B movies would have been in the smaller cinemas. And now, even if they would have made same amount or more money with a digital release, I don't think filmmakers make films to not see them in theaters and to have people have the opportunity to see them, even if it's on a smaller independent theater. So, film festivals will come back at some point. Movie theaters will come back at some point. But the business will be changed. And distribution, if this happened 5 years ago, I don't know what would have happened, right? Even 2 years ago with digital releases, like, I don't know how Hollywood would have been affected. We're gonna wrap up pop culture with some Star Trek news, and this is my weekly reminder to go watch Lower Decks. It's fantastic. Jeremy, Kishore,
Disagree.
Please. Don't think of it as a Star Trek show. Think of it as a fan show.
Okay,
You will
that's
like
helpful.
There's too many services. I don't want to sign up for another service. Like, and if you're detecting like a real whiny pitch to my voice, it's there. Like, people are telling me to watch Ted Lasso. People are telling me to watch Lovecraft Country. People are telling me to watch Lower Decks. People are telling me to watch Pen 13. People are telling me to watch Cobra Kai. I listed 5 of the best reviewed shows, and they're all on different services.
This is true. If only you could watch shows a la carte. If only there was an a la carte model where we can kind of pick and choose what we wanted to watch. Thanks, streaming services. That desire is what got us where we are right now. There's just too much good stuff.
You could get them over your cable modem and call it cable TV.
I like it. And maybe you bundle in a telephone and internet with that, and now you get yourself a real business stew. There you go.
No. I can't subscribe to this like corporate overlord speak. I just need to get my stuff just like out of the air. We'll call it OTA or something.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Next gen TV. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, might be a real thing. Anyway, back to Star Trek. Some Star Trek cast members are participating in a political fundraiser coming up. This is going to be a virtual event next week for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and it will include Patrick Stewart, Kate Mulgrew, and George Takei, as well as Brent Spiner, Gates McFadden, cast members from Next Generation, as well as from Picard and the new shows, Discovery as well.
So I bought my ticket to this, and I realized it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because of the political nature of this, and that's totally fine. The reason I'm interested in it is you rarely see cross-cast Trek events. There's always, like, typically when you go to Trek cons and stuff, they're within their show, they're within their kind of cast, and they're, you know, reminiscing, telling stories. But and then every once in a while you'll see stuff like the Doctors or like the women of Star Trek, or, you know, like Doctors. That kind of stuff. Yeah, totally. I've seen a Doctors of Star Trek panel. But the idea that they're all kind of just smashed together for this, I'm kind of excited. And then you have like wild cards, like Will Wheaton's going to be there. Like, you know, Will Wheaton, like, I think is great in these kinds of formats. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, the website's called Trek the Vote to Victory. And if you Google that, there'll be links to where you can participate with a donation. Speaking of Kate Mulgrew, though, she has just announced, because New York Comic Con is supposed to be going on this week. And of course, it's virtual events and virtual panels and exclusive sales and things like that in the pop culture world. But Captain Janeway will return in a new Star Trek animated show called Star Trek Prodigy. It's on Nickelodeon. So it's interesting. It's not going to be the CBS All Access model. This is something you can get not OTA, like basic cable, at least, with your YouTube TV. But it's going to be Captain Janeway. Now, do you want to hear the premise? I see the skepticism. I can hear it.
I watched
silence.
In the show notes, someone put a link. One of you guys put a link to the announcement of this, and I watched it. And I went in very skeptical, and I came out kind of excited about it.
Okay. All right.
Janeway is the most underrated captain in the Star Trek universe.
So give the rundown. What's the synopsis of this thing?
I agree, first of all, Kishore. I agree. You're correct. The synopsis is Star Trek Prodigy is about a group of lawless teens who discover a derelict Starfleet ship and use it to search for adventure, meaning, and salvation. Okay.
When I was young, we just called that like joyriding, but you know, to each their own in the 24th century.
Yeah, is this the Star Trek equivalent of finding a dirty magazine behind your grandparents' house, right? Or the Goonies? It's Star Trek Goonies. Let's call it that. It's Star Trek Goonies.
Jeremy, they left the keys in the ship. Let's take her out.
Let's put on some Beastie Boys, right?
Yeah, they've got the rights to sabotage.
It's in the Star. It's canon. It's canonical in Star Trek. So yeah, I'll give it a try. I don't know what role Janeway is going to play as Admiral Janeway, so it's probably set in that same kind of lower decks, a late 24th century, the 2380s, 2370s, right? Time frame, which makes sense for post Next Generation, post Voyager, pre Picard, possibly. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Star Trek kind of is right now hovering in the late 24th century, and I'm looking forward to them getting into the aughts.
To hear Kate Mulgrew talk about this series, like she's legitimately excited to be involved in a kids show, in a Star Trek show for kids, and to be the captain of kids. Like she's looking at it from a, you know, almost like a LeVar Burton Reading Rainbow kind of perspective, and I think it's pretty awesome. I will check this out, and I hope to like it more than Lower Decks.
Did you watch Voyager, Jeremy?
I tried it. I couldn't get into it.
Okay, so you're not going to get the Janeway references, and maybe there won't be many, but maybe this will get you back. I mean, you recently watched DS9. TNG can't
all
be
you
your
need
only
to know
touchstone.
about Janeway. Janeway is a great nuanced captain like the others before her, but she actually drinks coffee. Well, I guess Aractogeno is technically coffee, but she drank real, honest to goodness Earth coffee.
Yeah. All right, that does it for pop culture. Let's move on. All right, we do have some Google stuff to talk about. They're in a battle against Oracle,
And
What's this
this
about?
battle has been going on for 10 plus years. I don't think it can be understated how important this case is to technology overall. This is a Google versus Oracle case writ large, but it's really about something bigger than that. And Google's hearing its name here on my desktop here. But basically, years ago, when Android was first coming out, they couldn't get developers for it. So what they did is they allowed like Java developers through an API to develop for the Android platform without learning a new language as a way of getting developers over to Android. And so they use some functions from Java that are clearly Java functions, and they ported them over to the Android system, and then used them. And then for years, there was a fight between Oracle after Oracle bought Java about like, hey, that's our copyrighted stuff. You can't just steal code that we wrote and then use it for this. And Google's had multiple arguments saying that it's like fair use, that it was through an API, which is the critical part of this case. And what Oracle has argued is that that is our code, and that API is copyrightable because it is not APIs are not different from code. They are a thing that is developed by humans. It is a copyrightable piece of technology. Whereas Google's offering that the interoperability that's created by APIs makes them unique in some way. And so that argument is before the Supreme Court. Oral arguments happen today. And the idea is like, you know, if Oracle wins, like the short term is that Google is going to owe a lot of damages, like in the billions of dollars for this. But moreover, the concern is like, if we basically make APIs copyrightable, what does that do for the interoperability of a lot of different systems that exist? It's going to make it more expensive. It probably reduces competition, and it's just going to make certain systems not want to work together because of the price associated to it. That's at least some of the concern. There's also, I think, a reasonable argument that like, hey, Google just straight up copied a bunch of code from Java, and like that's Java, and you can't just do that. So it's a complicated case, and the early indications is that the argument from Google did not go over super well to a bunch of much older justices that are not nuanced in what API versus code is. So this has big ramifications, and it's worth watching. It's not going to be settled anytime soon, but it's going to, like, we're in the midst of probably one of the peak times for this case.
The analogy that's described with the keyboard layout, for example, the idea that a typewriter company could not copyright the QWERTY keyboard layout, or that would stifle cooperation and also make make kind of writing a mess. Do you think that makes sense as an analogy?
That was literally an argument that was put forward by one of the justices back to the Google lawyer today. I don't know. I mean, like, yes, like I look at APIs like as being a critical part of technology infrastructure, whether they're so standardized to use a QWERTY analogy. I don't know if you can do that. I personally don't want to see APIs as a piece of technology be able to be copyrighted because I think that stifles a lot of systems working together. And I think that's the opposite of what we actually want in terms of effects on the system. I don't know anything about the legal ramifications of this. And so I just have sort of like what I'm hoping for, because I don't want to be in a system where like, all these different programs can't talk to each other because money is in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens in the Supreme Court right now if there's a tie?
Typically gets the ruling from the lower court prevails. But the Supreme Court, if they don't issue a ruling, won't also override, won't set a precedent that the lower courts have to follow. So there can be additional battles in the lower court. So they, like, who knows? Like, is kind of like the real answer. But in terms of the actual like legal fight, it just reverts to what the lower court has ruled. And those rulings have recently gone against Google.
Alrighty. All right. Keeping a close eye on that. And decision hopefully in a couple months is what they say. Next week, on the day the Quest 2 is is released, Apple will be presumably announcing the next iPhone. An invitation has been sent to technology journalists, and people read way too much into the graphic design and also the wording of the invitations, but let's just list it out here. It is the Apple logo, of course, and underneath says high, speed. So the presumption is it's going to be 5G. 5G will be the theme of this. But the big rumor, and I know you don't like talking about Apple rumors, Jeremy.
I don't.
Presume the rumors have been, while 5G will make its way onto a high-end, the most expensive iPhone that may not be across the entire iPhone lineup, certainly not any of the kind of entry cost iPhones that they may release or announce, but maybe even not on the smaller models, the non-Max models, that may be 5G only on a Pro or Pro Max model.
Gotcha. Sure. Maybe all of the models will still have Wi-Fi 6, which would still justify the title of the invitation. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I, for one, don't care about 5G and don't think it's something that consumers necessarily want in the U.S.
There's no public infrastructure here in the U.S. for it.
Yeah, especially the millimeter wave one, the fastest implementation.
The one
of 5G.
That matters.
The one that matters, and any of the deployments so far that happened before COVID were in kind of the public places, in arenas, in places where infrastructure, private companies could invest in that, and we're just not going to those places yet anyway. And I don't think, I know service providers are chomping at the bit to upcharge, fees to get people subscribed to 5G and all the promises that it can bring, but no one wants to be paying more for cellular plans right now when we're all
especially now
home.
Like I'm spending 99% of my time at home.
Yeah, it's all about the gigabit, all about that gigabit. But they had their event earlier last month for all the other products, the new iPads. So this will be a heavy iPhone. If they announce the phone on the 13th, which is weeks delayed, this is not a September event, it's a mid-October event, and the phone comes out typically 2 weeks later, right? The United States is still not going to be in a place where most people are going to wait in line for a phone. And they have shifted the model to most people getting it pre-ordered and delivered, but there are a lot of people who are on upgrade plans who need to get their phones back in, right, to the store and get the new phone, or people who go to stores every year to the Verizons and AT&Ts and T-Mobiles. That's where they upgrade their phone. I don't see that really happening. I do think it can have a pretty big impact on who decides to upgrade and number of people actually, the sales for the first few months.
Oh, you joking? This thing's going to be sold out in minutes.
I don't think it's not going to be sold out. I think they will meet demand and they will announce it being sold out. You think the appetite is there? You think that that people are saving up their money from not buying lunches and parking, and they're going to buy iPhones? You think that's
100%? I don't know why Kishore is shaking his head. Look at the lackluster watch that was announced a month ago. Like you couldn't get that for a month after its release date, after a few minutes.
So in fairness, what I'm talking about is if they have like supply under normal circumstances, if they have limited supply because of, the pandemic, I don't think that counts. If we're talking about comparing it to the 11 and if the 12 has the same stock, there's not the demand for $1,000 phone. Like it's just not there.
I do think it's a funny situation because this is the year that people expect a new form factor, and it's been an extended cycle, right? They've been on the 10 design for 3 years now. You still have a 10, right? You went 10, Jeremy, 10, skipped 10S, skipped 11, and so you're ready. Yeah, you have the 10, exactly. So, and the 10 was such a big jump, right, in terms of design. They skipped 9, they went to 8 and 10, big jump, big form factor, Face ID, edge-to-edge, OLED, right, all that jazz. If they do new form factor, people love having their new form factor iPhones. I do think there will be demand there. I just don't know if that demand will I don't know if people are going to be able to get those phones because of how closed businesses are. I don't know if that's worth the
that's
risk.
true. That's true. The location-based stuff, absolutely a concern. I'm sure Apple has a solution for that. They're going to mail you a box and you're going to send it back, and they're going to, trust you to give it, the current condition, and they'll evaluate it when they get it.
Hey, why don't they take our ballots along with them?
Look at the NVIDIA cards. You can't get those. Like, you had to buy a computer in order to buy one. No one can buy a PlayStation. No one can buy an Xbox. And I don't think it's all due to supply constraints, although that may be an issue. I think there is simply demand, and there's people with disposable income still willing to spend it. And look at, Apple, the watches, like I said before. And the phone is like the biggest thing of the year. It's always the huge, draw for people's money.
I see Oculus in the corner. Hey, you could get a day one launch. You can get an Oculus 2, a Quest 2. It's not back ordered yet.
I'm convinced that Sony made 100 PlayStation 5s only.
Well, their CTO is like hand assembling them, each one, right? Isn't that the case in the video?
Yeah.
They disassembled them.
Oh, disassembled.
Well, he put it back together too.
Yes, exactly. Hand inspecting each assembly, disassembling, and then reassembling. Before we get to the PlayStation, Apple did announce that they're extending the free Apple TV trials. If you were part of that 1-year plan, you bought a new phone last year and you got a free year of Apple TV Plus, they're going to extend it to February 2021, a whole extra year in some cases. And I think that speaks to a couple things, but primarily, the service has not been as successful as they had hoped. There's, of course, the Apple One bundle now, and I think they were kind of rethinking, kind of like Apple Arcade. They start off really strong with so much content, so many of these, these veteran TV showrunners and writers, taking in that Apple money and making shows that some of them have won awards, but in the era of COVID, they haven't been able to get into production, and then also it's hard to compete when there's established services like HBO and Netflix and Amazon that are also doing really well creating original content, and people already have, or that's a sunk cost for a lot of people. I don't know when the last time I watched something on Apple TV Plus was. What was the last thing you watched on Apple TV Plus? An exclusive show.
The morning show. It's great. And they just resumed shooting, so I'll be watching that again sometime in the future.
Kishore?
I've never had it.
I never had it. Yeah, no interest either, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, like, the only thing that I've heard good things about has been Ted Lasso. So, and Jeremy, you should watch Ted Lasso. It's supposed to be, like, uplifting and nice.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they made those kind of shows anymore. That's great.
I didn't think so either.
There's also isn't The Right Stuff also coming out on no, it's Disney Plus. Sorry.
That's Disney Plus, yeah.
Getting my services confused. Disney Plus has The Right Stuff as a series. Yeah, so yeah, I don't even know what Apple TV really Oh, sorry. They have that big site. They have the Foundation series. That's Apple TV. Yeah, there was a trailer for that. Foundation. Okay, that's the one that's probably one of the first ones I'll start watching. GeForce cards, 3000 series cards. Huge short supply. NVIDIA CEO Jensen said it is beyond their wildest expectations, and they talk big talk, but it even exceeded their internal projections. So they do not expect the 3080s and the 3090s to be in stock through the end of this year. Sorry if you're looking to get your kid a 3080 for Christmas, or yourself one too. It just won't be the case.
One solution is you can EVGA, who, by the way,
manufacturer of cards.
Because my 13-year-old has only ever seen it written, he thought it was called EVGA.
Sorry.
We're laughing with, not laughing at.
Yes,
laughing with.
Tell him to pronounce ASUS.
Right.
How does he pronounce that?
Like
VGA, adults can't do it.
VGA is not a part of his childhood, so it's like,
that's
why not?
True.
Okay. So anyway, if you go to EVGA's website, you can go to any of their video cards and click notify me, which normally you put in your email address. They're actually doing a queue system. So you enter a queue, and when your number comes up, you get 8 hours. They'll send you a unique link for 8 hours that's valid. You can buy a card. and if you wait 8 hours and it passes, you lose your chance. But it's a great system. Unfortunately, now everyone's in the queue, so it probably won't help you get one this year. But it is an option to at least be in line.
All right. That's a cool piece of tech. Hey, Waymo, that autonomous car company that's part of Google, or under Alphabet, the W in Alphabet, they are starting to deploy their real driverless taxis in Arizona within a 50 square mile area in the Phoenix area, and I think also the suburbs of Mesa and Chandler and Tempe. You can call a Waymo. I'm really curious. I'm not going to go to Phoenix to try it.
This is the moment for driverless cars, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess
this is like
yeah.
This is the condition where you're like, I don't want to be in an enclosed space with somebody I don't know. Voila! Like, awesome. I'm very, very curious how it does. It's a really limited system. I think there's only 1,500 users that are currently in the system that can sign up for this feature, but awesome. That's what I have to say about this. I'm very curious how well it does, and if it takes away market share from Uber and Lyft, who are hurting a lot right now, given the declines in ridership because of the pandemic. So I think this might be a moment for those to shine, or if the service just doesn't work, to kind of fall by the wayside.
Can anybody call a cab, or do you have to be in the beta somehow?
You have to be in the program.
Okay.
So pre-vetted, and some other insights. There are human operators remotely monitoring the cars, so they can check those out. I think right now, like one human operator per 10 vehicles, 10 to 20 vehicles, but they're going to ramp that up, and that would be a really cool dashboard. Speaking of dashboards, to take a look at how they get to monitor. I'm sure there are camera feeds, all sorts of things, but that's a air traffic controller type job, but for a driverless car, that's pretty cool, just in terms of technology, right? And then last bits of news, Comcast says that they can do gigabit uploads and downloads simultaneously, symmetrical 1.25 gigabits possible over cable infrastructure, no dedicated fiber necessary. Because right now, I think like Will has gigabit on Comcast, but you're capped at 35 megabit upload. But they think they've hit a tech milestone that will allow gigabit plus download and upload over existing copper.
Cool.
So I have Comcast gigabit, and pardon me for being cynical, but is there a magical technology breakthrough here, or they're just like, let's just turn the switch? It's time.
They say it's updates to their DOCSIS spec, and it's not to consumers yet. It's commercial only, but they say it will require advanced architecture that, quote unquote, software-powered networking technologies, including digital fiber optics and cloud-based virtualized cable modem termination system platform. Jargon. So
that is,
cross your fingers for the
Star
jargon.
Trek jargon of internet service providers right there.
Yes, please. And no worry about downtimes or service outages or any promises with that. You're still dealing with Comcast. So I'm happy with my fiber. Not everyone has it, but they're going to push that existing infrastructure, as far as it can go, as far as it can probably go. Both of you watched the PS5 teardown and rebuild. What do you guys think? It's big. It's a big console.
Yeah, it's a big console. Go ahead.
I think you're going to see aftermarket wings. I think people are going to be customizing those wings because they're super easy to take off.
Yeah.
I think they'll be customizing the stand too, even. Because that clips on and off pretty easily. That's a big honking fan.
Big fan, big heat sink.
Yeah, I'm very curious how loud it's actually going to be in practice.
They've been pretty good, though. They have a good track record with noise.
No, they haven't.
They don't?
I think this is an overcompensation for how loud and hot some of the PS4s got toward end of life. And I think that gives me hope for how quiet this one will be, and one of the reasons it has that big fan. But you can tell the things that they got like feedback from their consumers about with last gen are things that directly went into the design of this gen. I don't think it's because the chips aren't are overheating, because they're all working on real small nanometer processes. But I think it absolutely has to do with complaints about current generation, much like with 360, Red Ring of Death, and Xbox One, and all that overcompensation. Yeah.
I mean, it's cool that you can clean out, like they have those dust holes that you can clean out the dust. They have an SSD slot. It's not as easy as with the Xbox where you just like literally just plug it in, but whatever.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. And that's it for tech news. Before we move on to our next segment, I want to let you know that This Is Only a Test is also made possible this week by Eufy. With a unique focus on privacy protection, Eufy Security offers an integrated home security ecosystem that focuses on smart technologies, AI, and unmatched battery life. Eufy Cam 2 Pro is the latest wire-free home security camera system from Eufy. With a 365-day battery life, you can avoid frequent interruption to charge the battery and enjoy up to 365 days, that's a whole year, of charge, or up to 3 years in standby mode for either indoor or outdoors. You can live stream and record footage in crystal clear 2K resolution, and you can see exactly what's happening in and around your home. Eufy Cam 2 Pro is a one-time purchase that combines security with convenience. There is zero hidden costs, and plus you get 16 gigabytes of local storage for storing 1 year of recordings and military-grade encryption data security. It works with Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa for seamless hand-free operation, and Eufy Cam 2 Pro is ready for any weather and built to withstand elements. Visit your local Best Buy or bestbuy.com to purchase the Eufy Cam 2 Pro, or visit eufylife.com. That's EUFY life.com to learn more about the Eufy Cam 2 Pro, and thank them for sponsoring this week's episode.
It's time for a moment of science. I'll be relatively quick this week. First, we should talk about monoclonal antibodies for some reason. This is a treatment where they isolate the antibodies that are actually reacting to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. These are proteins in your body that actually enable you to have protection from the virus, that fight it off. And the idea behind monoclonal antibodies is find the ones that are actively fighting the virus in your system, clone them, and then sort of scale that up into a high dose that can then be injected into somebody that is starting to get sick, or potentially could get very sick from the disease, as a way of offering them protection. There are multiple versions of this. The Regeneron one that most people have heard of. There's also one from Eli Lilly. These are all in clinical trials right now. The evidence of them offering protection is reasonably good. It's very early. Both of them are applying for emergency use authorization, so that can be used in very, very narrow situations in the hospital. But overall, I'm actually positive about this treatment. It's not going to be ready in the next month, but it, like, as an emergency treatment, if you end up in the hospital and you're really sick and they give it to you as a course of treatment. The problem historically with monoclonal antibody treatments is that they're really expensive and they're hard to manufacture. So typically a dose is usually tens of thousands of dollars, and they can't manufacture at scale for all of us to get this. And this is a therapeutic, so it's like only to be used when somebody gets sick. But I think this should give you some hope in 2021 that there's stuff coming online beyond vaccines that are going to help us get past this disease, and increasingly lower the mortality of it as well. And if we can get the mortality down to where it's closer to the mortality of something like flu, where we can manage it, we're not worried about hospitals getting overcrowded, we can really see life quickly return to quote unquote normal. I mean, nothing is going to go back to normal, but there is promise with this therapy. It just needs to go through. It's been used in such a small sample of people so far that it's hard to sort of scale it up. So I don't want to discourage people because of the politicization around this to not be encouraged about the treatment, but at the same time, just know that it's going to take a while to sort of scale in because where it is in the process. We got to talk about Excel. I think I did a story years ago on this podcast about how biologists were using Excel for genomic data, but Excel was reformatting like A's and C's and T's from the genome sample and causing errors. Well, we have another example of this, except it's different. Public Health England, which has a database of coronavirus infections for the country, undercounted the number of cases by about 15,000 in recent days, which is a huge number of cases for that country. And it was because of Excel. They basically were routing data through Excel templates and then uploading them. And they claimed that the data was being put into XLS files, which have a limit of 65,000 rows, but these were million row templates. And so a bunch of data was getting sort of cut off. And that's why they ended up underreporting cases by about 15,000 over just the last few days. I just think it's funny that Microsoft Excel continues to plague scientists around the world. I mean, it's not funny because it's a really serious issue, but it's one of those things that I think just illustrates the technology problems that are actually pervasive in science. They aren't about like this high tech, how are we going to build this machine to detect black hole kind of thing. It's oftentimes like interoperability of file formats, and they usually have something to do with Microsoft systems. Nobel Prizes were this week. Roger Penrose, Andrea Ghez won for black holes. They basically did a lot of the work that Einstein theorized to prove that black holes existed. CRISPR won a Nobel Prize this week. Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna won for developing a system that, bacteria developed this sort of immune system to viruses where they would copy elements of their genomic code into their own genetic code. And then Jennifer and Emmanuel used that concept to essentially engineer a way of copying genetic code from viruses and then editing their genomic code, which has revolutionized biological work these days. And I think CRISPR made it into a movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That's all that you need to know about how influential CRISPR is. And I appreciate that they gave the prize to basic science in this case. And there was also an award for 3 researchers who first characterized the hepatitis C virus. I will say, like, the Nobel Prize is like the quintessential lagging prize in science. It's usually for work that's done years and years in the past. CRISPR is really the anomaly here because that work only happened in the last 10 years. But most of the work is like 40, 50, 60 years old sometimes. I think if you want to look at some exciting science and exciting work, check out the Macarthur Genius Grants that were announced this week. There's some some names that people recognize, like N.K. Jemisin, the science fiction author, got a Genius Grant. And she's famous for the 5th season series, which is awesome. But there's also a lot of scientists in there doing like really exceptional, forward-thinking work that might reshape, science for decades to come. And they're relatively young and earlier in their career and doing some really innovative work, which typically is what the Nobels actually recognize as work done relatively early in these people's careers. But they just don't recognize it until it's well established that happened years later. So check out that Macarthur Genius Grant list. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Welcome return to a moment of science. All right, let's do our last segment.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Well, we were talking about the Quest 2 launch next week. What else is going on in the world of VR, Jeremy?
Well, Norman, somebody bought CoatSync. Now, can you name me? Yeah, can you name me any games that were made by company CoatSync?
Oh my God, we had just talked about them. I should know this.
This is a company that you know better than you think you do. It's one of those, those names. First of all, they made Shadowpoint, which
that's the one.
For my money, was the best launch title for the Quest.
Great voice acting.
Fantastic, yeah, by Patrick Stewart. They're making the upcoming Jurassic World game, which you haven't played a beta of that, have you?
I have not.
I don't know if that's launching like day and date with the Oculus Quest 2, but it seems to be, one of those games that they're hoping will look good on it. And it's just an upcoming title. They published Onward, and they did the 2 Esper games.
That's yes,
so
absolutely.
Now, unlike every other VR company recently that's been bought up, it wasn't by Oculus. They were bought up by somebody I have never heard of, a Thunderful game publisher. So there you go. Good for them. I mean, I'm glad to see VR companies, able to continue.
One of our favorite early games, also Pixel Ripped 1989, and the developers there were able to release it for the Quest, interestingly, as a DLC expansion, a game within a game within a game, of the more recently released Pixel Ripped 1995.
It's great.
That's neat. I like it. Same
Absolutely.
engine, presumably, and it's a way. I think they had some issues getting it through the QA, and as I think DLC might have been their way to get this release on that platform. Highly encourage you, if you have a Quest or Quest 2, check that out soon. And then one last bit is that a game that has been in development for quite a while, I think since 2018, I want to say, Population 1. It's a battle royale game for VR. Cross-platform. They announced their launch date will be October 22nd at a price of $30, which I know is controversial for some because there will also be some in-app purchases as well. But I will have a video coming out later this morning where I get to chat with developers about the making of this game and also show off some of my early play testing of it. It works cross-platform across desktop VR, so whether you're on Steam, Windows Mixed Reality, or on the Rift. As well as natively on the Quest and the Quest 2. I played it on the Quest 2. Performance was great, and it's a game I'm looking forward to jumping back in because I want a good Battle Royale game in VR.
Me too. We've had so much fun playing Rec Royale, that this is now a proper, Battle Royale game. And I was looking forward to it more than it, after this news about the in-app purchases surfaced. That's a hard pill to swallow. A full-price game on VR followed by in-app purchases
or cosmetic purchases as a business model. It just that doesn't sit well with me. Plus, it's not cross-buy. Come on. I mean, especially the game where you're going to be upgrading your character, make certain unlocks, you need to be able to play that on different platforms, and that doesn't sync. Let alone be able to play on Rift and Quest after paying $30. I think it's a tough decision for them, right?
With a multiplayer game where you want to have as many players as possible, that should be a priority.
Yes, like they've made the calculation that they think the game is good enough that it will build a player base for this launch price, and it won't risk becoming, an unfortunate launch game. Like games like Space Junkies, which were fun, but just could not have a sustainable player base for that game. And I think the game probably would have been better served being lower cost and for the bigger player base if they're going to go with the in-app purchase model. But I understand that it costs money to make games, and I wish them the best. And I certainly will be picking it up and buying it and playing it because I do want a good Battle Royale game. And the gameplay is fun. It's, I think, a lot more enjoyable, a lot more akin to Battle Royale than the Rec Royale, for example. Which always felt like it was more, it had all the elements of Battle Royale, of dropping in a biggish map, but always felt like it was more still Rec Room gameplay.
How many players in Population 1?
18. So same number as Rec Royale, teams of 3, so 6 teams of 3, and the games last about 10 to 15 minutes long. So it is made for quick matches, and I would love to play with you guys. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, let's do it. October 22nd. And I think that's it for the episode. Next week, we'll hopefully be talking about the new iPhone. I'll be back from my travels And yeah, we'll be back for more. We have a lot of great stuff on the site right now. We're releasing the multi-part series of Adam putting together and building from scratch, a complete scratch build of his Hellboy Samaritan prop replica. It's been a really fun journey watching that, and builds on weekends as well. We'll be playing Squadrons, hopefully. I'm probably gonna play some tonight as well in the hotel. See how well the hotel internet holds up. Anything you guys want to shout out before we wrap up? Evga.com.
Yeah, good on them making a queue system. That's great. Everyone else should do a queue system.
I want to shout out my son. He finally beat Breath of the Wild, and seeing him like have the experience of beating Ganon, and he's like, "Daddy, my eyes hurt because I haven't blinked enough." And he was just like, he totally like got into it. It was awesome. And I'm looking for costume ideas for Halloween. So if people have suggestions, hit me up.
Oh my God,
Wait a minute.
Coming up.
Wait a minute. What is Halloween this year?
I don't know, but I'm dressing up somehow. I believe I'm also going to I've kind of specced out a build for remote candy distribution to the front door using an elaborate series of pipes. I have some PVC pipes that are going to shoot some candy down towards children's if I can pull it together.
So
There's some great designs online.
We are expecting that. We are expecting children at our front doors.
I have no idea if any children are going to come, but if they do, they're going to get a face full of candy from me.
Wow, kids need candy. They look
forward
to it
once
a
address?
year.
Not this time. You've outsmarted me in the past, but I'm not going to reveal it this time around.
What if your PC arrives on Halloween?
Oh, then those dirty kids are going to stay away from my stew.
That's right.
And
That's right.
And if you want to really troll me, you just come dressed as a UPS person.
Oh, there you go. I like it. All right, this week's outro comes courtesy of Great Job, who dropped us a bunch of outros. Thank you, Great Job, and thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Here we go. Again, I have not listened to this one.
Hi there, I didn't see you. Tested.
All right. There's one thing we don't talk about enough of on this podcast.
What is it?
Gonorrhea.
Oh,
damn it. We're going to talk about gonorrhea.
It's true.
What the hell?
We don't talk about it.
Why was I
enough.
talking about gonorrhea?
I don't know, but we
Science
needed to.
related. Yes, compelled to. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.